Right, let's kick this off. Welcome everyone to Spotify Studio Sessions and to our Ad Studio Summer Live webinar. We are incredibly excited to have you all here today and to take you on this 40-minute road trip that will cover all of the ins and outs on how to best advertise with Spotify Ad Studio in the summer. But first, who are we? So I'm Helen, and I work as a growth account manager on the self-serve team here in London, in the UK. I collaborate mostly with brands and agencies and help them make the most out of their activities on our platform. But I'll hand it over to Tom for him to introduce himself.
Thanks for the intro, Helen. Well, my name is Tom Gravy. I'm a growth account manager here in New York. Very similar to Helen, I try to help make sure that brands and agencies are really able to get the most out of Spotify. And then also too, my favorite song of the summer, I'm a huge 90s R&B fan. So for me, Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls is my song of the summer. Before we jump into things, we want to go over a few technical and housekeeping notes. We do have a Q&A button right here in Zoom. So interaction is very welcome during these sessions. We want this to be a dynamic conversation. So if you have any questions, please use the Q&A window to submit them. And then after the presentation, we'll have a dedicated Q&A session just for you. And then Helen and I will help answer as many of your questions as we can. And then lastly, we'll follow up with the on-demand recording from this webinar in a couple of days, as we don't expect you to memorize everything. So you will be able to go back and review this at a later time. So let's jump into a quick snapshot of our playlist today. We have a really exciting agenda ahead of us. We all know that weather can impact our mood and behavior, and we see some exciting trends that we see on Spotify that we'll go through here in just a moment. Then Helen will be providing an overview of Spotify Ad Studio's key features and updates just in time for summer. And then we have a very special guest. We have Kintiki's Michelle Knockham for a live interview so that you can hear what it's like to work with Spotify from one of our favorite clients here. And then finally, we'll close out with a Q&A session and reminder to input your questions as we go. And then finally, we won't leave you empty-handed. We also have resources and next steps to jumpstart your summer campaigns. So before we dive into some of our content here, we have a question for you. This is the first of a few polls throughout the presentation. We want to learn a little bit more about you and also show some of the power that some of Spotify's data provides. So our first question is, what do you think Spotify's song of the summer is last year? And to qualify, hey, what's the song of the summer? We're just looking at, hey, what's the most streamed song out there? So first up, we have Running Up the Hill by Kate Bush, super popular with the last season of Stranger Things. We have Bad Bunny with Mi Porto Bonito. We have As It Was by Harry Styles. And then we have Bad Bunny again with Titi Me Pregunto. So we're getting some results in. I'm seeing a lot of Bad Bunny. I'm also seeing, Harry Styles is kind of coming up from the back here. So we'll give everybody a few more seconds to enter their results and we'll see who takes the lead here. All righty. All right, we've got about 5 more seconds to get in those answers. So anyone else want to take a guess at Spotify's Song of the Summer? All right. Now let's go to the results. And the answer is Harry Styles, As It Was. This was last year's most streamed song of the summer globally. I think you had to live under a rock to avoid that song. All righty. Now let's get into some of our content here. So if you're like me, summer is my favorite season. So let's kick things off by taking a look at summer trends of what we see during some of these warmer months on Spotify. So we all know that audio can set the tone and really enhance the moment. So whether it's playing your favorite 90s hit at your friend's barbecue, a morning news podcast with your cup of coffee, or a relaxing meditation session to unwind in a hammock, audio is a really integral part of our lives. So it's no surprise that listeners are spending about 2.5 hours per day streaming audio as they soundtrack their day. Since Spotify can go where screens can't, it really gives you as a marketer and advertisers a powerful opportunity to connect with your customers as they're engaging with audio during these key moments during their days. So you might be wondering, who are these Spotify users? Well, the good news is almost everybody loves music and audio. So Whether you're listening to a podcast to learn something new or singing your favorite song in the shower, Spotify really has something for everybody. So it's no surprise that we are able to reach almost all major key demographics. And really, you're able to target to reach your core audience amongst this group. Spotify is a pretty equal split across genders, and we're integrated in over 300 devices, from in cars to desktop, mobile, and tablet. You'll notice that a lot of our users are very mobile first, which really gives you a great opportunity to connect with them when they're on the go this summer. Speaking of on the go, in-car listening is really popular during the summer months and really peaks during Fridays of people going on a long road trip over the weekend. And as the weather heats up, you'll notice that our listeners like to chill out. Taking a look at some of those top moments that we see during the summer, chill is number one, and as well as romance. Summer fling, anybody? Also, happy and summer are really popular in the summer, no surprise there, as well as workout, as people work out outside during the more favorable weather. So if you're like me, living in New York, we have a really short window for nice weather. So it's really great to take advantage of getting outside. So when I'm outside, I really like to disconnect from my devices, and so do millions of others. During the summer, people on average spend about 2.5 hours less per week watching TV and about 1 hour per less on social media. So while these channels are down, streaming audio is actually up, since Spotify accompanies your audience while they're on the go, enjoying their favorite summer activities. Speaking of summer activities, travel, anybody? Data from Virtuos's network of travel advisors shows sales for travel are about 47% higher than they were in 2019. And the Economic Intelligence Tourism Outlook projects global travel to increase 30% since last August alone. This means that about 8 in 10 people are planning a trip around the globe in the next 6 months. So we do see the industry trends are pointing to higher travel during the summer months, and we see these trends reflected on Spotify as well. We see a 33% increase in travel-related streams during the month of July. So you might be wondering, who are these travel streamers? We were wondering too. So we partnered with the Global Web Index survey to learn a bit more about them. And we found that travelers are more likely to be adventurous, not just on the road, but with the products and services that they try. They're about 45% more likely to be the first in their friends or family to try something new. So as a marketer, this is a really great group to go after to really break into their networks when you're broadcasting new products or services to them. We also wanted to share some really interesting trends from some of our latest research. These trends are coming from Spotify's annual Sonic Science research, where we study the effects of digital audio on the brain using neuroscience to really show how Spotify's deep levels of personalization and interactivity impact engagement, mood, and recall. So from these surveys, we found out that listening to audio is a personal immersive experience, and that really does lead to higher ad engagement. We found that 60% of listeners' ad engagement was carried over from music and podcasts into the ad right away. Also from this report, and coupled with our Cultural Next report, which really focuses on Gen Z and millennials, we found that a third of participants in this study felt happy and cheerful after listening to a Spotify session. And a quarter of participants described feeling calm after they're listening to Spotify. So it's no surprise then that about 68% of millennials and Gen Z are using streaming audio as a mental health resource. So when we're happy, calm, and engaged, we're more likely to remember things. So listeners were about 5 times greater to recall mock ads of Spotify compared to control group sessions. So speaking of, we'd love to jump into our next poll. This time we're going to be focusing on podcasts. So we'd love for you all to guess, what do you think is the most streamed podcast on Spotify so far this year? So we're going to give you guys a few moments here to enter your answers. All righty. So the first one up, we have social, society and culture. We have true crime, comedy, sports, and news. So we're going to have everybody take a quick guess here, give everyone a few more moments to enter them in. All right, so I'm seeing a few kind of pull ahead here. I'm seeing a lot of true crime, society and culture, also not too far behind. All right, well, let's look at the results here. So you'll be surprised to know that comedy was the most streamed podcast genre this year. So the number one from this poll group was true crime. And we actually hear that a lot. I think true crime has had some major success with Serial in the past. Still one of our top genres, but comedy is actually one of our biggest genres on Spotify. So now that you've heard a little bit more about some summer trends and insights, I'm going to kick it back over to Helen to talk about how to take advantage of this group on our self-serve ad platform.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Tom. And super interesting to hear a little bit more about our most popular podcast genres. But now when we've heard a little bit more about the summer listener on Spotify, let's actually dig into how we best can utilize that through our self-serve platform. And yes, we have quite a few different stops to make in our self-serve journey. So are you ready, guys? Let's go. So as you can see in front of you, we have 5 different stops. And I'll cover each and every one of these in more detail, but please feel free to submit questions as we go through them as usual. Now we have free audio creation, boost brand awareness, contextual targeting, summer events, and product updates, and all of them together build up the self-serve advertising summer starter pack. Great, so let's kick off with the first stop, free audio creation. I would say this is probably one of self-serve's most appreciated features that will truly magically produce an audio asset for you free of charge and regardless of the campaign that you set up. The only thing you need to do is to pick a voice actor, and we do have quite a few different ones that you can choose from. Upload your script, where we do recommend the more details, the better the outcome and the quicker the outcome. And finally, select your background music. At the end of the day, we are on Spotify, so just make sure to keep it vibey and happy. And the timeline for your campaign will not be impacted by the audio being produced for you and still be delivered to you within the average ad studio timeframe of 24 to 48 hours, even with the audio produced. Moving on to the second stop, boost brand awareness. Now, most of you might know that we launched auction pricing in music last year. And with this launch, we also offered 3 different bidding goals for our advertisers to choose from. Reach was one goal out of those, and it's truly the best one for building awareness across a wide audience. Generally speaking, regardless of the goal that you do pick, we are seeing a 19% higher brand breakthrough on Spotify versus ad norms on all other media out there. However, with this specific reach goal, you will be able to reach as many unique listeners as possible with your message. Right, moving on in our road trip, and we've got targeting. How do we best target in the summer? Well, one thing to take into consideration for sure with Spotify ads would be the overall context of where and how the ads is seen or heard. And in fact, we've even recently run a study on this, where we saw that 73% of recent study participants agree that they're open to listening to ads on audio streaming services if the tone fits what they're doing at the time. And one major advantage that the Spotify ad offering has in general would be our data that we have about our users, or so-called streaming intelligence, because this data can essentially tell us more about how different audiences are streaming on the platform. So now when you guys have heard about our typical summer listener on Spotify, you'll know how to best reach them, right? Like Tom mentioned, we are seeing playlists like chill, romance, and happy leading the way for these summer listeners. And we're also seeing that the in-car listening is peaking as well. So there you go. You essentially know how to best utilize it to reach these summer enthusiasts regarding playlists. But besides playlists, we can also tap into different events, right? Because truly, whatever is happening in the world is also happening on Spotify. And here are a few of the main events that we're seeing where that impact streaming across all of our markets in the summer. So to name a few, we have Queen Victoria Day in Canada, as well as Memorial Day weekend in the US, where North America sees a 23% increase in streaming of playlists titled barbecue, summer, cookout, etc., as listeners kick off their summer season typically. Another main event would be Juneteenth in the US, where we do see a 46% increase in Juneteenth playlists. And another thing that we've also seen impact streaming would be the temperature. Last year in the UK, we've had a ridiculously hot summer with, one day in particular where we hit 40 degrees Celsius, even July 18th. And we did definitely see the impact on streaming that they had, where 28% increase in the summer moment playlists happened. Great, so we've gotten to the final stop in our road trip, and that one has to involve our product updates, and in particular, a very exciting one. Now, like I mentioned to you guys before, we have auction pricing in music, and therefore we are offering our advertisers 3 different bidding goals to choose from depending on their campaign KPI. Now, the reach goal we did discuss a little bit earlier, but we do also have an impressions-based goal, and we have a third one that we most recently launched that is the click goal, where we've seen some incredible results. Now, the amazing thing about this click goal is that it comes along with these interactive call to action cards that will pop up for the user in their ad experience. So they will not only hear or see the ad, but also be able to engage with it. And yes, we've seen some truly incredible results. As you can see here, for example, the 2 times greater increase in click-through rate when you combine the click goal and the call to action cards. And another good thing is that our optimization tool will help your call to action cards reach listeners who are more likely to click. So again, you will not only be able to tell your stories, but also actually get our listeners involved in them. However, the click goal is just one out of several very exciting product updates that we have going on the platform right now. And besides that one, we've recently launched daily budgets as one of the updates, and we've also further evolved on our podcast ad offering. So for more information on all of these different product updates, I would recommend you guys to reach out to your dedicated Spotify rep in your markets, or just reach Tom or myself after this webinar, and we will be able to answer all of your questions. But speaking of questions, we are slowly approaching the Q&A section of the webinar. But before that, we have quite an exciting advertiser interview with Contiki. And before that, I have a question to all of you, which takes us to poll number 3. What artists are you most excited to see on tour this summer? Is it Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Harry Styles, Janet Jackson, or Red Hot Chili Peppers? Well, I'm seeing a lot of Queen Bee fans. Taylor Swift as well is quite close. Not that many Harry Styles, actually. Janet Jackson, she's still there, but definitely Beyonce seems to be leading the way. So I'm giving you guys just a few extra seconds so that you can tell us who are you most excited to see. And I think we're getting to an answer. I think by the looks of it, Queen Bee, Beyonce. Well, I guess we're on the same page then. Me too. But thank you so much for that, guys. I'll hand it over to Tom to go through the Contiki interview.
Thanks, Helen. I'm also really excited to see Beyonce this summer, but I'm also really excited to introduce you to our very special guest today, Michelle Knockham from Contiki. For those of you who don't know, Contiki is the world's leading social travel operator for 18 to 35-year-olds. With over 350 trips across 6 continents, Contiki's mission is to bring travelers together to have the time of their lives, which sounds amazing. I kind of want to go on a trip right now. But welcome. Thanks for joining us today, Michelle.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
You know, before we dive in, though, I have to know, what are you listening to this summer?
Oh, there's so much I'm listening to, whether it's music, podcasts on Spotify. Definitely thought of true crime when Helen asked that poll earlier. But I was in the garden last week, having a really fun time in the sunshine, and put on a Women of Pop playlist, which was super fun. Kind of all the female acts over the decades, blasting my tunes out, and just having a blast, really.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I can't think of anything better just being outside listening to your favorite pop hits.
Especially in the sunshine.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. But I would love to know too, though, can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and your work with Contiki so far?
Sure. So I, prior to Contiki, have had both client side and agency side roles. And now I'm back to Contiki, which is a client side role. And I came and joined the team at the back end of 2021, where we were still kind of in that pandemic time period. And it was a really great opportunity for me to come in to the brand as kind of those new, fresh set of eyes to come in and create something new for the business.
Yeah, definitely an interesting time to start and see how things have evolved now with travel being like coming back full swing. Can you tell me a little bit more about what got you interested as well as your team into streaming audio and Spotify?
Sure. So I guess just personally and probably industry-wide, I've seen audio, streaming, music, podcasts grow massively over the past few years. And our audience, our travelers are 18 to 35s. So Gen Z and millennials are our top audience that we try and tap into. And I know there's so much data, insight, and research into really demonstrating how this audience has a very high percentage of consumption across audio streaming. So in terms of media planning and that kind of direction, it made complete sense for us to start investigating Spotify as one of our digital channel options. Aside from that, the team have always been keen to be at the forefront of new technologies and innovation, testing new formats. So when I came into the team and I started investigating any kind of new opportunities that we might be able to launch across, I wasn't aware, but we had actually started advertising on Spotify back in 2019, so just before the pandemic. So that kind of, again, sparked conversations around how we might be able to leverage Spotify. And the team had started building a campaign in 2019, which was kind of our first ever Alexa skill, how to pack your bags if you're going to Colombia. And it was in partnership with the Colombian Tourist Board. And when I was planning that campaign, it felt like Spotify would be the right kind of way to bring that to life. So Spotify definitely played a huge role for us in gaining awareness. We used audio as well as video content across Spotify, and it really helped us achieve a bit more awareness for us as Contiki, and also supporting those who are in the middle of packing and planning to go to Colombia.
I think that's such a cool use of audio of like, hey, let's reach them in that moment while they're packing with a message. Super relevant. And I think that's really cool that we're able to combine your messaging and our data to really hone into those key moments. Can you also speak to a little bit about what that performance was like a bit on Spotify?
Yeah, so since then, we've run quite a few campaigns on Spotify, even as far to say as we kind of have it as an always on approach now as well. We see Spotify kind of tying into that high level brand awareness messaging that we try to achieve for the brand. So when we've started delivering these campaigns, to our surprise, we started seeing really good traffic towards the website. So despite us not running with the clicks beta objective, we were purely optimizing towards reach and frequency. What we were really excited to see was this audience from Spotify were engaging with our content on the platform, whether it was audio or video through kind of music and podcast side of Spotify. But they were actually clicking through, and once they were clicking through, kind of sticking and really engaging with our website. So pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, definitely a great added bonus of, hey, we're doing this for awareness, but then also seeing some of those like mid and lower funnel metrics as well of driving to your site as well. What I would also love to know, like, what advice would you give someone who's maybe new to Spotify and streaming audio?
I guess from my experience coming into the team, I immediately reached out to Spotify. We got a really great rep to support us in all our needs in terms of building a campaign, really on hand and there to be collaborative with whatever we needed. And at the time we weren't sure of the platform. We hadn't activated that many campaigns. So despite not having huge budgets, I'm not talking about tens of thousands here, we managed to get that support from Spotify. But it was super easy because you go onto Ad Studio, you don't need a script, you don't need production team, sorry. So in terms of getting audio ad, which can be kind of have cost implications in terms of getting producers involved, getting creative teams involved with creating the script. We essentially just were able to build a script in-house, put it onto Ad Studio's platform, and then Spotify does the rest with getting a voice actor. You can choose the age, the kind of accent that you want as well, if you're kind of launching in US or UK or Australia markets. And yeah, just hit the button and go live, really super easy. So kind of recommendations is you don't need huge budgets to test the waters on Spotify. So I mean, the results will speak for themselves. So if you've not been able to dig into the platform just yet, if you have, I don't know, £500, you can launch a small campaign without the need of getting voice actors and production team and hit the ground running.
Yeah, I think that's something that we really try to prioritize, is having something for everybody at every level, and really just keeping it super simple and turnkey with free ad creation and keeping things quick and easy so that it's accessible to everybody. Well, I wish we had more time, but we're at time today, Michelle. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today. You're welcome back anytime. But with that said, we are going to jump on over to our Q&A session. I'll kick it back to Helen here.
Yes, thank you so much, Michelle and Tom as well. That was super interesting to hear a bit more about. And now it's time for the audience Q&A. So I can see that we have gotten a lot of great questions. Continue to submit questions as we go. And Tom and myself will do our best to answer to all of those questions that we've seen. And with that, let's kick it off. So what is the breakout of free versus premium listeners is the first question that we've received from Tori.
Well, thanks for the question, Tori. In terms of free and premium listeners, we see about a 50-50 split between the two. And the great thing is both of those groups are targetable through our advertising. So free listeners, they're able to be reached on both music as well as podcast inventory, while premium listeners can be reached via the podcast inventory. So really options to reach all of our listeners. And I think the really cool thing is it really comes down to that user choice. Spotify is a fairly low level of point of entry. So really our demographics for each actually look pretty similar. So long story short, about 50-50 split between free and premium listeners.
And I would just add on top of that. So of course, these stats look different across different markets. So just make sure to reach out to your dedicated rep in your market to get the most up-to-date stats on this as well. Great, moving on to the second question. So what is a typical CPM?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Spotify is on a second price auction. So you can really decide as an advertiser, hey, what's a Spotify impression worth to me? You can also check in real time. We have an audience sizer right in the Ad Studio dashboard. So when you're booking your campaign, you'll know ahead of time, hey, what's a recommended bid cap for your market, target audience, etc. So you can really get that custom estimated CPM ahead of time so that you can make sure that you're going to be successful with your campaigns.
Great, thank you. And we have another question from Emma. So how do you ensure brand safety on Spotify?
Well, thank you for the question, Emma. Brand safety is really important to Spotify. We're part of the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, GARM. And so one other thing that I think is great about Spotify is we have 100% logged in audience. So we know our listeners are real people who are active, which really makes sure that your ad is heard by a real person and not a bot. And then we also have people, processes, and protocols. So we really want to make sure that you are always going to have that control of your brand safety. The really cool thing is also within the Ad Studio platform, you can also control where your ad runs. So you really can make sure that it's targeted for your audience and needs.
Great, thank you. We have one question from Christina Taylor, and she is wondering how to best engage the Gen Zs or college students this summer. So I'll give my response to it so Tom can breathe a little bit, and then maybe Tom, you can add on to my response. But I would say the best way to reach them, first of all, it is summertime. So already everything that Tom mentioned in the summer listener section of this webinar, make sure to look at playlists such as chill, happy, summer, as we do know that that's kind of like typically where everyone will be. We do also know that the biggest demographics or age groups on Spotify would be kind of the Gen Zs and millennials, and as well as the college students. So that would be fully aligned to them as well. However, you can also, besides targeting based on playlists, you can also target based on genres. So a very popular genre for the Gen Zs specifically would be pop, for example. Another one would be hip hop. So maybe tapping into those genres as well could be another alternative.
Yeah, those genres are really popular. We also have moments like study and focus. So you can really reach those maybe potential college students while they're maybe prepping for an exam in those key moments. And we also have age targeting as well. So you're able to kind of hone in on that audience from that perspective too.
Yeah, exactly. And great, moving on. So what is the typical average CPC using the click goal from Savannah?
Yeah, so our click goal is also based on a CPM. So it's the same as reach and impressions, which you can also view within the dashboard to get whatever your targeting is to find that CPM.
Great. And we have a question about the click goals. So any successful B2B case studies with click goals? And I can take that one initially. So yeah, as of now, since the click goal is kind of one of the most recent bidding goals, we are actually right now gathering case studies. So hopefully in a couple of months from now, you should be able to find a few on the click goal. Great, moving on. So will there still be the ability to voice your own ads, or must you submit a script for Spotify to create for you? From Aaron.
Yeah, so how it'll work is you can write in your own script and then our team will record it for you. So you can have that control as well. So if you're working with a creative team that has a script, you can copy and paste that, and then our team will go ahead and record it for you.
Yeah, exactly. And that whole process, like I mentioned before, is super quick and straightforward. So yeah, just enter some details about your tone, accent, all of that, like Michelle mentioned in the instruction box, and then we will be able to deliver an audio asset to you quicker. Great. So what ongoing and analytics do we get to track the success of the campaign? From Prestige Gifting. Should I go? Do you want to go?
Yeah, I'll take this too, and feel free to add anything you want as well. So we have a real-time reporting dashboard, so we're able to report on all those key metrics, so impressions, reach, frequency, clicks, as well as some deeper cuts. So, hey, we'll have breakouts by device, gender, genre, so you can really get to learn as much about your audience as possible. So the dashboard is always a great place to check. And also too, if you have additional questions, we can send you a follow-up with all those additional metrics available and how to access them.
Yeah, the great thing about all these metrics is that you can easily download them and share them with your teams and colleagues and kind of review them in your own time as well. But these are just some of the things that us as growth account managers can, of course, help you more in depth with. Great. So what is the average frequency that a listener will hear our ad per day? I can take that one. So yeah, on average, we do strive for a frequency of 3 to 5 per listener per day, usually. However, that's up to you. We do also offer frequency caps so that you can put a cap on it as well. Tom, do you want to add something on that?
Yeah, and also from when you're planning, in the audience sizer, we'll give you what the projected frequency is for your budget and targeting and flight. And we're also able to give you an estimate of what that would look like per day, week, as well as the lifetime as well. So when you're building your campaign, you'll be able to really kind of play around with things to really find that right frequency for you.
Great. So we have a question from Ramaj as well. So who do these ads pop up for? Is it people who are Spotify subscribers or free users or both? Is there a way to see an example ad in action? I can answer one part of that question. So in terms of the ads that are popping up, it would be for free users in our music inventory, and it will be for both free and premium users if you run ads in our podcast inventory.
Yeah. And then the also great thing about this too is if you're, let's say, an agency and you want to send an ad to a client, we have a new preview link. So you can just share that out and then see what that ad looks like in real time. Also, after this too, we can send you a few examples of Spotify produced creative, as well as some case studies as well to show you what those ads are like and some of the success metrics.
Great, thank you. So we do have a few more questions before we wrap up. Are there any partners you can recommend that creates eye-catching content for Spotify ads? From Reggie.
Well, thanks for the question, Reggie. So the nice thing is that we produce free ad creative within Ad Studio with every campaign. So you don't need to use a third party. You can just directly use us. So we use thousands of professional voice actors, and we can really tailor them to exactly who you need. And then also too, from that asset perspective, all of our ads are served with companions. So you can upload your own, or we also have some pre-made ones as well. So if you need to move really quick on the fly, you can enter all of these and, within 10 minutes, enter all that information, and then we'll produce a finalized ad for you within 48 hours. So we can move really quick here to make sure that we can produce an ad for your needs.
And it's free of charge, like we've already mentioned as well, regardless of the campaign that you set up. Great, moving on to a question from Natalie. Where can we find out more audience and demographic data on Spotify audiences to ensure we're getting the right fit for our brands? So I can give the short answer. It will be going through your dedicated Spotify rep and being really honest with them in terms of what are the types of audiences that you're trying to reach, age, gender, location, all of that. And your rep will be able to nurture you with the latest insights, essentially. Do you have anything to add to that, Tom?
No, just basically agreeing with you as well, as we can help you send additional insights to make sure you have exactly who your audience is.
Great. We have 2 more questions. So you said that free and premium listeners both can be reached through campaigns. I thought that premium listeners pay to not have ads. From Jill?
Yeah, I can take this one. So premium listeners can still hear ads, but only on the podcast side. So if they're premium, they will not hear ads during music. Those will only be played to the free users. So it really just depends on where they're listening on the platform.
Yes. And the last question. So I'm new to Spotify. Is there a minimum spend to get support from an account manager? From Julie.
Yeah, so our minimum is $250. So really making it accessible to everyone you can. And then, we're here to really help get you started and up and running. And then those will kind of just depend on the market. But we're here to really make sure that you have exactly what you need to be successful on Spotify.
Great. Well, thank you so much, guys, for being engaged and asking questions. I think we have to round up the Q&A part now. So I'll just hand it over to you, Tom, for the last few words.
Yeah, well, thank you, Helen. And thanks also everyone for joining today. We would love to hear your feedback from this webinar. So as you can see, we have a beautiful QR code here. So please scan the QR code on the screen now to fill out a short 3-question feedback survey. It'll take you less than a minute to complete the survey. And again, your feedback is super helpful for us to really plan future Ad Studio webinars based on what's most important to you. At the end of the survey, there will also be an opportunity for you to let us know if you would like to speak to an Ad Studio representative. All you need to do is fill out your details via the survey form if you'd like to get in touch with us, and then we can schedule a call within the upcoming days. So watch out for a follow-up email, which we'll be sending out tomorrow with the recording from today's webinar. And we all hope that you've enjoyed Spotify Summer Road Trip. And we also hope that you have a great summer vacation as well. And we'll see you all soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.